Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Lasagna, bringing you all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you sports fans out there like you and me. And this is episode number 330 of this icy yet spicy casual podcast. And in this episode, we're going to talk about some pro wrestling. And it's been a while since I talked about wrestling here on the podcast, on the show. And why is that? Well, just look at the state of wrestling, especially in the WWE right now. Not exactly a great state, despite how the internet wrestling community likes to gas it up. It's not exactly a creative state of mind, at least with modern pro wrestling, per se. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, if you like it, more power to you. It's just not my cup of tea at the moment. But regardless of that being said, it is that time. It is that time of the year for the World Wrestling Entertainment, and that time being the WWE Royal Rumble. It is almost close to one of the WWE's biggest events of the year to jumpstart the biggest season of the year for them, and that is the road to WrestleMania, their Super Bowl of sorts for pro wrestling. And that's what we're here to talk about in today's episode. Sort of. And why do I say sort of? That is because we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble, just not this upcoming one. We're actually going to go back in time to the year of 2006, into the coldest depths of the freezer. And yeah, grab that old ice box and grab that catalog of 2006 to look back at the 2006 Royal Rumble. I am really excited to talk about and review this pay-per-view, because this Royal Rumble holds a special place in my heart, given that this was my first ever year that I started watching wrestling, like 2006, as a wrestling fan. And you know, as a whole, just holds a special place. This was like literally my first month watching pro wrestling, like 20 years. It's been 20 years since I started watching wrestling. Like, so I'm not sure how many retrospectives I'm gonna do for 2000, like these 2006 retro reviews I'm gonna do here on Very Cold Lasagna, but I'm gonna try to do as many as I can, like see if there's like any interesting things that I want to do, like touch on here on the show. But yeah, you just have to stick around and see what comes up. But one of those things being here is the Royal Rumble. So with that being said, strap in, put those headphones on, grab a cup of coffee or whatever you drink, and make sure you get your breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever you may be eating, and let's get into it. Let's talk about this 2006 Royal Rumble that took place 20 years ago. So yes, this took place 20 years ago on January 29th, 2006 at the American Airlines Arena, which is now known as the Kaseya Center, whatever company or that bought the rights to the home of the Miami Heat in Miami, Florida. I don't know what company that's called, but anyway, at the time it was known as the American Airlines Arena, which is a more suitable name in my opinion. Like what's Kaseya? What is Kaseya? But that's another subject for maybe another time, but that's not going to happen here on this podcast. But yes, this was the 19th annual Royal Rumble. And this, obviously, with it being the Royal Rumble, the signature match was the 30-man over the top rope match. It was a battle royal for those of you that are not in the know, whether you're a very casual wrestling fan, a new wrestling fan, or just not one at all, where wrestlers entered at timed intervals, whether it be 60 or 90 seconds, and the last person standing at the end of the match would win a world championship match of their choice at WrestleMania. And it had been going on since 2004. So as per tradition, since that time, it was only been 2 years since this has been going on. It was either the WWE or World Heavyweight Championship. So whoever won this match would have to choose between those two. So it was around this time, a little bit of a IRL in person, like my perspective kind of thing. As I mentioned, this is my very first month as a wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling 20 years ago, around this time in January. A couple weeks ago, around this time, I was just flipping through channels on my big box TV. I'm not sure if it was in my room or I think my parents' room, but I was just flipping through channels on that big ass TV, and then SmackDown was on UPN, which was now the CW. So I was just flipping through channels, and then I saw SmackDown. I'm not sure which episode it was, and this apparently was a period for this company where it was still on shaky ground. And what do I mean by shaky ground? Well, it was still a few months removed after a certain wrestler, which we'll talk about more as we get into the Royal Rumble match. He passed away, and another wrestler who recently got injured, and plans really shifted around as they got into the most important time of the year for the WWE. So yeah, given how I was relatively fresh and still relatively young during this time, I was like a kid. I was a kid when I started watching wrestling. So this being my first being a young wrestling fan, not having the power of YouTube yet, I wasn't really quite vested to, being a full-on wrestling fan. I was like a filthy casual. I was like a very filthy casual wrestling fan. But nonetheless, excitement was still in the air, despite it was kind of there was still not really much build up for the Rumble match itself and half of the card, but still, it's the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble match is always the most anticipated one of the card, hence why it's called the Royal Rumble. And yeah, we were gonna find out who's gonna move on to face whatever champion they wanted at the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania 22. So let's talk about the match card itself. I'll be honest with you. 20 years ago, I actually didn't watch. I actually didn't watch this live, to be honest. Like I said, filthy casual. Didn't see a whole lot of wrestling in the first few months. The first few months of as my wrestling fandom, I actually saw this a little bit backward, a little bit before, after WrestleMania 22. So that's how I learned about the Royal Rumble match and the result. And the Royal Rumble match itself is how I learned most about this pay-per-view. But then obviously we had the rest of the card when I am reviewing this 20 years later. And then I say the title match, the world title match itself. But that's what we're here doing the retro review for. So let's talk about the whole show itself. Starting off with a pre-show match on Sunday Night Heat. Shout out to the WWE Vault for pulling this up at the very last moment. And that was Finlay taking on Brian Kendrick. Interesting note about Finlay. He was 47 years old when the time he was wrestling. He just recently re-debuted as a wrestler because, yeah, he wanted to make a comeback after not having wrestled for 3 years. In that time span between 2001 and when he last wrestled for WCW before they got bought out, he was a trainer, and he trained for a comeback in 2004. He took a year to get himself ready, and in 2005, towards the end of it, he came back. And the vignettes, the promos that were promoting his return, it promoted him as per his theme song. My name is Finlay, and he loved to fight. So basically, he was an Irish fighting kind of guy. Yeah, so it's kind of like basically one of those, baby faces where in modern day wrestling where, oh, let's have a match, pal. Except with Finlay, he was a very aggressive, like, heel that would get in your face and pound your ass, I guess. So yeah, he made his debut a week or so prior to the pay-per-view in a DQ loss against Matt Hardy because yeah, he had that Irish aggression, pal. So in this match itself against Brian Kendrick, he continued to show that Irish aggression in a squash victory over Brian Kendrick, tossing him out of the ring like a rag doll, and then using his ring smarts by avoiding Kendrick's springboard dive and turning that by using the ring apron and turning that into a nutcracker. Yeah. Brian Kendrick's not going to have kids. I don't know. Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, he managed to get the win with this finisher, the Celtic Cross. But yeah, overall, it was an okay warm-up match. And I remember Vince was pushing Finlay pretty hard back then. Finlay was an upper mid-card heel throughout 2006 and 2007. But I don't know. I wasn't really all that into him. The only time I really got into Finlay was obviously when he was with the little bastard that he later introduced, known as Hornswoggle. That was pretty much all I was into when it came to Finlay. So we opened the show with this very nice opening package with Vince McMahon, with the McMahons, Vince, Shane, Linda, and Stephanie. They're in Romanian gear because the theme of the Royal Rumble this year was the Roman Empire, as per the poster. So it was like this gladiator fight, I guess. So that was pretty much the set too. It was like this Roman Colosseum-esque set. You don't get that nowadays in modern WWE. They're Mr. Krabs cheap. But anyway, yeah, you had a Roman-esque set. You had chariots. You had yards. All that stuff. So you get the opening video package with the McMahons. You had like very fast moving sizzle reels promoting the Rumble match, the WWE and World Heavyweight title matches, all the good stuff that you would want to hype up the show and hype up the fans. And then you get the opening pyro, boom. So we get into the opening matchup of the pay-per-view, which was the WWE Cruiserweight Open, featuring the champion Kid Cash, Funaki, Jamie Noble, Nunzio, Paul London, and from Monday Night Raw, Gregory Helms. Why was Gregory Helms in this match? Well, we'll discuss that in just a bit because we got to talk about the match itself. These multi-man cruiserweight matches, I talked about these in previous retro reviews from the Ruthless Aggression era, from last year, from 2004, aka 20 years ago in 2024. These multi-man cruiserweight matches back then, they were chaotic. Some of them were fun to watch, but a lot of them were basically typical stuff that you see nowadays, but they were slightly better. And this one was no different. So you can't really pinpoint all the spots in this one. Like you can't say, oh, XYZ happened. A, B, C happened. Like I can't sit through and tell you every single thing that happened. So I'm going to give you pointers of what I liked in this match. One of those things was I don't like dog pile spots, but Paul London's shooting star press onto everybody, that was a pretty cool spot though. Gregory Helms' top rope swinging neck breaker. I think that was on Paul London, I believe. That was pretty cool. And then we get towards the finish line of the match. Kid Cash hit his brain buster finisher on Funaki, but Jamie Noble was some weird guy. Like he broke up the pin, but he was diving for it and he made this like weird face. For all my audio listeners out there, he had his mouth wide ass open. He was like he was like super exaggerating, breaking up the pin. He was like trying to be like Superman, but just super exaggerated. So yeah, he was like really freaky about it. So he broke up the pin and then he went to work on Funaki, and Noble hit this I think it was like a double, like fireman's carry, double knees. I'm like, I don't know what that move was, but he tried to make Funaki tap into a dragon sleeper, but then he was thrown out by Gregory Helms, and yeah, Helms then hit the Shining Wizard on Funaki to win the Cruiserweight title. Poor Funaki, man. Funaki got bullied in the finish of this match, but yeah. Gregory Helms was your new Cruiserweight champion. And why was Gregory Helms in this match, as I alluded to at the beginning of this portion of the review? Well, as mentioned by Michael Cole and Taz, despite being a Raw guy at the time, he was eligible for this match because he originally held the title back in 2001 as the Hurricane. Michael Cole and Taz mentioned that even though the Cruiserweight title was exclusive to SmackDown, this match was still open to former Cruiserweight champions. And Gregory Helms, as the Hurricane, was a former Cruiserweight champion. It was also during this time where I think Vince and Gregory Helms were trying to experiment Helms outside of the Hurricane character. From it was like way before this match, by the way, that Gregory Helms was trying to be, himself. But in my opinion, he was just kind of like this vanilla guy. He had good work rate, but not much of a personality, in my opinion. But anyway, Gregory Helms, he, as a result of winning the Cruiserweight Championship, he moved over to SmackDown to feud with the Cruiserweight division. More than half of it, that feud was on Velocity, that WWE's B show, SmackDown B show, mind you. And he went on to later become the longest reigning Cruiserweight champion in the company's history. He went on to hold it for over a year, well into 2007. So then we had our second matchup of the night, and this featured Mickie James taking on Ashley Mazzaro. Why was this matchup on the card? Well, it had to do with one of WWE's most intriguing storylines at the time. And this is not to say that Ashley Mazzaro was not a integral part of it, but she was I'd say I don't know if I could say a supporting part of it, but maybe like I don't know what the other word for it is when it comes to movies. But anyway, this was more served as a moving piece towards I say, I don't know what the right word for it is, the bigger picture feud of Mickie James and Trish Stratus, who served as the special guest referee for this match. So to give you some detail on the Mickie James and Trish Stratus storyline, Mickie James actually made her debut a couple months back as a super fan of Trish. Think of it, for those of you that watched iCarly on Nickelodeon when you were a kid or even as a teenager, Carly, Sam, and Freddie had this super fan, this very obsessive super fan that would just follow them around. And I believe Nora, I think it was like, no, not Nora. I forgot what their name was. But anyway, and then I think it's like, no, that was the one that trapped them in the basement or something. But anyway, yeah, they had this obsessive super fan or whatnot. And then it was kind of like this, but on a more wild level. So yeah, Mickie debuted as Trish's superfan, who again progressively became obsessed with her on, again, a crazier level. This included Mickie cosplaying as Trish in a Halloween costume contest, using her moves in her own singles and tag team matches with Trish, and as what soon became a very notable storyline throughout late December and then going into January of 2006. Yeah, he was getting to that point. It was getting to that point, pal, where it started to become something more than just your old regular wrestling storyline. And why do I say that? Well, Mickie became very obsessed to the point of kissing Trish Stratus under a mistletoe. And I don't mean just any old regular kiss. She went to getting that tongue action on Trish under the mistletoe. And she also saw her. Yeah, Mickie got to see them them tits, Trish Stratus, in the women's locker room, stealing that towel, hand that towel, and seeing that good stuff. That was a wild storyline. And then you balance that with the actual wrestling, because they did have a title match at New Year's Revolution. Yeah, wild storytelling elements there. But yeah, it got the story moving along. And despite losing that title match at New Year's Revolution, James was okay with it. Mickie James was still fine with Trish Stratus, and that made Trish even more uncomfortable. And that led to Ashley Mazzaro, who was Trish's friend and ally. She had to intervene and step in multiple times. She called Mickie James crazy, and then they start fighting each other, and that led to this match. So yeah, this was a really crazy storyline. Again, I didn't catch it like live, because I wasn't allowed to watch Raw because it was a school night on a Monday, and I didn't have a TV at the time in this room. So yeah, wasn't allowed to watch Raw. But again, as I grew, as the years went by, with the power of YouTube, yeah, that's how I knew about this. That's how I got to see one of the best women's storylines in WWE and wrestling history. So before the match started, Mickie James confessed her love, and I don't just mean love. I mean the love for Trish Stratus. And Trish again started to get very uncomfortable with this obsession that Mickie James was really having. Yeah, when it came to the match itself, though, not great, not really great, per se, because at the time, Ashley Mazzaro, fresh off of winning the 2005 Diva Search contest, she was very limited, very green. Despite what Joey Styles and Jerry Lawler were claiming as having trained with Trish, maybe she did, I don't know, but still pretty limited in the ring. And later on, she went on to have a lot of popular fan support, which is great. But here, she was still very limited, despite showing some potential, like solid strikes. But she also had she also performed a bad crucifix driver towards the end of the match, and she kind of sandbagged the finish. The finish, speaking of, it saw Mickie powerbomb Ashley on the second rope, although the landing was really rough, hence why I said sandbag. And Trish reluctantly counted the 3, and afterwards Mickie eagerly hugged her because of the victory. So yeah, not a great match, but what was more important though was the story progression at this time between Trish and Mickie, whose obsession with Trish also showed the psychotic aggression in Mickie James, like this psychotic, obsessive, super fanish lover. Mickie James was in character, obviously, in this match on her way to the victory. So Ashley Mazzaro would get a revenge win. Rest in peace to Ashley, by the way, who passed away in 2019, unfortunately. So yeah, as Ashley would get a revenge win, Mickie and Trish's story would only get even more intriguing as the road to WrestleMania 22 marched on for them. So then we get into the third matchup of the evening, which was very questionable for a lot of people, and that was the Boogeyman going up against John Bradshaw Layfield. JBL during this time period, it was a very interesting in not a lot of great ways, because he wasn't doing a whole lot. Looking like, having watched back at the things that he did in late 2005, coming off the WWE title loss from John Cena at WrestleMania 21, and then that World Heavyweight Championship feud with Batista that ended at SummerSlam, didn't really do a whole lot after that. And then this was one of those things that where it was just another filler feud for JBL, going up against the Boogeyman. So when it came to this feud against the Boogeyman, who recently debuted, by the way, with this freaky gimmick of appearing unexpectedly, holding and bashing clocks on his head, like big clocks, and probably one of the most freakiest things, eating live worms as if he was Andrew Zimmerman on a freaky level, as like before Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmerman on the Travel Channel, which is now on the Cooking Network, or the Cooking Channel, whatever it is, before that show even existed. Yeah. Like what the fuck? But anyway, I do remember seeing the Boogeyman in my first month of wrestling. I was like, I was like, okay. But the good thing was I didn't have nightmares. I did not have nightmares about that. So that was a good thing. But yeah, the Boogeyman had been torturing JBL and his PR assistant, Jillian Hall, since Survivor Series. So essentially a whole 2 months leading up to this pay-per-view. This included JBL running away from the Boogeyman and some very interesting things done to Jillian. That included the Boogeyman stuffing worms up Jillian's skirt. You probably wonder where those worms went up. Yeah, I'll let you put that up for interpretation. But anyway, looking at this match itself, very short and yeah, the worst match of the pay-per-view because of how short it was. And yeah, JBL dominated a lot of this match, using Jillian as bait to start it. And Boogeyman again, torturing poor Jillian, spitting worms on her titties before JBL again dominated a lot of this match. And when he was about to hit the clothesline from hell to finish off the Boogeyman, Boogeyman dodged it and hit his pump handle slam finisher for the win. So I don't have a lot else to say about this match. I just remembered the Boogeyman doing a lot of freaky things. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now let's get on to the entree of this show, and that is the 2006 Royal Rumble match. Again, this match, this specific Royal Rumble match, holds a near and special place in my heart, not just for the fact of what happened at the end of the match, but this was the first ever Royal Rumble match that I saw. I mean, granted, I didn't see it live, but I managed to see it later on in the year. But it just, that's why it holds a special place in my heart. And again, I was very excited when I put this, when I was watching this again 20 years later for this retro view. And let's go through it. Let's go through it first before I give you more thoughts on it. So, as had been in the last few years at the time, we had actual qualifying matches take place to have wrestlers earn their right to get in this Royal Rumble, rather than in more recent times, the wrestlers just outright announced that they're going to be in the Royal Rumble. You know, typical Triple H lazy booking. So, yeah, we actually had qualifying matches from even the upper mid-card main event level guys had to qualify for the Royal Rumble match. So that just tells you that, hey, especially during a time where you're having a lull period between post Survivor Series and there's no pay-per-view in between that, and then you got the Royal Rumble for until a month and a half, you can do qualifying matches and build storylines centered around the Royal Rumble. But no, Triple H doesn't want to do that. So anyway, back to this match. I'd say WWE did a good job in the video package to highlight the possibilities of which wrestler could win this one, but also having overarching stories in this Rumble match and the potential ones going into WrestleMania 22 in 2006. Throughout the night, you had wrestlers like Randy Orton, Triple H, The Big Show, and especially Rey Mysterio go into the backstage area where Vince and his devils, Candice Michelle, Tori Wilson, and Victoria, whom they were flirting with both the wrestlers and, of course, Vince McMahon. Oh, man. Vince and his devils. But anyway, that's besides the point. Those wrestlers were getting their numbers from the tumbler that you would get in bingo. And yeah, we would find out what their entry number was in this match. So as with Royal Rumble matches, I won't get into like the full details of, what happened in X, what happened in Y, what happened in Z, A, B, and C. I'll just go through, my personal highlights from this match, and there are probably a bunch of them. So let's get started. So before this Royal Rumble match started, and Lillian Garcia could explain the rules, we had the Spirit Squad. We had the recently debuted Spirit Squad that included Kenny, Johnny, Mitch, Nikki, Mikey, and they were the Spirit Squad. Nikki was formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, later known as Dolph Ziggler, by the way. They interrupted the whole proceedings to give a pre-match cheer. They gave a high school like cheer that annoyed and got hatred from the Miami crowd. So, I mean, hey, they just wanted to show some spirit for the Royal Rumble, okay? So, Triple H and Rey Mysterio drew number 1 and 2. And Rey Mysterio, in particular, famously came out in Eddie Guerrero's Lowrider in tribute to his late friend. And they started out the match, and that pretty much set the tone for what was to come throughout this Royal Rumble match, especially, for Rey Mysterio. Goddamn. This is gonna be hard. Man, that Eddie tribute just really hit me right now. But anyway, throughout the match, you had Triple H's enemies start to come in early. You had Ric Flair, the 1992 Rumble winner, and who also won the WWF title, which was on the line. He entered at number 5. He came straight at his former Evolution partner that he had last feuded with at Survivor Series. Unfortunately, he was quickly eliminated after he got a lot of offense in, which was weird. And then right after, you had, well, it's the Big Show at number 6. And he went after Triple H too. He had beef with Triple H because he injured his hand with a sledgehammer in the lead up to their match at New Year's Revolution, which Triple H won. So, yeah. Triple H had plenty of enemies in this match. At number 7, you had Jonathan Coachman, everyone's favorite commentator, jobber in 2006. And yeah, Jonathan Coachman qualified for this Royal Rumble because he beat Jerry Lawler 6 days earlier thanks to the Spirit Squad. And he was quickly eliminated for trying to make a move on the Big Show. Triple H later eliminated both Big Show and Kane, who entered at number 9 while the two were fighting each other. And I was surprised at how little time that Big Show and Kane had in this match. Chris Benoit, the 2004 Rumble winner, entered at number 12, and he went on a German suplex flurry on Triple H, Mysterio, and Carlito. Booker T entered at number 13 next, but Benoit, who was beefing with Booker T for a couple months, he lost the U.S. title to him 2 weeks ago with help from Randy Orton. He got payback on Booker T by quickly eliminating him. He said, "See ya." And then Eugene, who I've had plenty of comments on in previous retro reviews, but no, not this time. He returned from a serious injury. I think he was seriously injured at that point still. At number 18, but he came out to a much better fan reception, which is always good. Rob Van Dam made his return from a knee injury at number 20, and he didn't miss a beat with this high flurry offense. Chavo Guerrero, he entered at number 2, as he also received an ovation from the Miami crowd in honor of Eddie. But unfortunately, he didn't last long either, because he got a little overzealous trying to do a frog splash for his for his fallen cousin or brother, just fall for his fallen Eddie, because Triple H eliminated him. Shawn Michaels, the back-to-back Rumble winner in 1995 to 96, he entered at number 25 as the ring started to fill up with wrestlers. Yeah, is starting to get pretty full in there. And then 5 entries later, you had Randy Orton, who had that great smile on his face when he got his number earlier in the night, alongside Triple H, who had a shock look on his face for all my audio listeners out there. Randy Orton was the last man to enter at number 30, and he quickly eliminated Chris Benoit as the elimination started to pile on. So a couple of minutes later, in the final portion of the match, HBK went on a flurry because you had got the likes of Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Shelton Benjamin. They had their promises of wanting to eliminate Shawn Michaels, but it was the other way around. HBK eliminated all 3 of them, which led to an irate Vince McMahon coming out with no chance in hell to distract Shawn Michaels, and with that, allowed his son Shane to throw him out of the Rumble match. And technically, that was allowed because there are no DQs in a Rumble match. So the father and son screw job escalated their feud with HBK, and HBK chased them backstage, but not before going back into the ring, and where he chased Shane out of the ring, and he hit his rival Triple H with Sweet Chin music on the way out. So the final 4 saw Rob Van Dam, Triple H, Rey Mysterio, and Randy Orton. But unfortunately, while it was faces versus heel initially, the alliance between RVD and Mysterio was short-lived because Triple H stopped RVD from a 5-star frog splash. Again, I don't understand these high-flying guys going for top rope moves in a Royal Rumble match. That's just kind of weird. But anyway, Triple H stopped the 5-star frog splash on Randy Orton, and Rey accidentally eliminated RVD because Triple H launched Rey onto RVD, that sent RVD packing off the top rope and onto the floor. So that left Rey, Randy, and Triple H as the final 3, as the former Evolution teammates picked on him, and Rey was fighting for his life in there, and that even included a double 619 on both of them. So focus then shifted towards Triple H and Randy Orton fighting each other, and after Triple H hit his signature spine buster on Randy Orton, he looked to do the same on Rey Mysterio, but Rey hooked onto the game, and he used this momentum to carry him into a Hurricanrana over the top rope and into a great elimination, to a very loud pop from the crowd and to the shock of the game. And yeah, the final 2 came down to Rey Mysterio and Randy Orton, and we were gonna get a very, very sudden, very, very thrilling ending to this Royal Rumble. But before we could get to that ending, Triple H dragged Rey Mysterio out of the ring like the sore loser he was at the time, and he threw him into the steel steps and threw him back into the ring for the future Viper to pick the bones to get the easy W, his easy ticket to WrestleMania, or so it seems so. Just when he thought he was gonna toss him out of the ring, just like that, Rey found a will. He found a way to grab the ropes as he and Orton battled for control, but in the end, he flipped Orton out over the top rope, and in a lasting image, in a very lasting image that still stands true to this day, in the hearts of many, he flipped Orton over with one final Hurricanrana over the top rope to become your 2006 Royal Rumble winner. And this was for Eddie. Rey, this was for Eddie. Still 20 years later. Man, just going through all that. Just going throughout that was like great. That was great. Like, there was a reason why I couldn't wait to review this specific Royal Rumble match. And that was because of the drama. That was because of the storytelling, the emotional buildup that led to this ultimate ending. The first portion of this match featured a lot of the upper mid-card guys dominating Triple H and Rey Mysterio, again, which set the tone for both of them throughout this match and the ending. Again, though, I just found it really surprising that guys like The Big Show, Kane, Ric Flair, they didn't last as long as they did. They didn't even make it to the final 15 or the final 10. Like, I didn't like that. I don't know. I kind of didn't like that because, like, you know, you left a couple of jobbers in there that were still, they were still in there after Randy Orton was the last guy to come out. But at the same time, though, I did like the decision to have Ric Flair and Big Show enter back to back to face Triple H. But again, they should have been in there longer. That's because the middle portion was pretty boring. It was like I was just waiting for the end to get to, because it was just a bunch of jobbers coming out, and the Miami crowd knew it. But at least you had a break from a fast-paced flurry of uppercard guys, so that's kind of a plus. And then you had obviously the late stages and the finish. What was this match was all about, and the drama of a great Final Four with RVD, Triple H, Randy Orton, and Rey Mysterio, and then the final three of Rey having to overcome Triple H and Randy Orton to successfully win this Rumble match. I really like the booking of Rey having to go to the distance, being number 2, having to last over an hour, which was initially a Rumble record at the time, but that was broken later in the later years. But yes, some people didn't think Rey was a believable guy to win the Rumble match because, you know, he's too small. He didn't do enough. He didn't eliminate a lot of people, but he did have the most eliminations. Actually, he eliminated 6 people. Sure, he was just lying down in the corner in a large part of this match, but hey, his nickname of the Ultimate Underdog really came into play here. He did just enough. He survived in this match, and that was a really great decision in my opinion, because this match served as an obstacle, especially being at number 2, for him to win it in honor of his best friend that, he really wanted to honor his wishes for, and he got what he wanted. Fun fact, though, Triple H was actually supposed to be the winner of this match, and when you look at how the Miami crowd reacted to opposite Rey Mysterio, sure, they wanted Rey Mysterio to also win this match, but they're also rallying for Triple H too. And yeah, according to former WWE writer Court Bauer in a 2013 interview, Triple H was originally slated to win this match, but Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard, and Bauer really pushed for Rey Mysterio to win this. And in the end of it, they made the right choice to have Rey win it. Rey Mysterio didn't main event WrestleMania, but he still got a world title match. And it still ended up working out for Triple H in another way when it pertained to Mania 22 as it came to this. So it made for one of the greatest and most memorable Rumble wins in history. And this was one of my first. This is not one of my first. This is my, I think, second or third memory of Rey Mysterio, and one of my other first wrestling memories as a whole. And I gotta say, watching this back 20 years later, when I watched it back for the review, I kid you not, man, I really got emotional watching this again, because Rey Mysterio is like my GOAT. Like he is my all-time favorite wrestler. And just being that underdog, being that guy to go the distance and win it for his friend, all that anticipation, and then he got it done in the end. That was very wholesome. That was a very wholesome thing. Sure, Bash the follow-up like bash the follow up after post WrestleMania, but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy this the win back then, and I still enjoy it to this day. It's like one of the few Royal Rumble wins like and matches that I truly hold to heart to this day. But the pay-per-view was not over there yet, because we still got two matches to go through, and that was the 2 World Championship matches, which I surprised was not before the Royal Rumble match, but it was within reason though. It was within reason. The first one up was the WWE Championship match, and that involved Edge taking on John Cena. Moments after retaining the WWE title in the Elimination Chamber at New Year's Revolution, a bloody John Cena, he was forced to defend it again, thanks to the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in by Edge. He had the Money in the Bank contract that he won back in the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21, and John Cena forced to defend the title again. He lost that title thanks to 2 spears by Edge, and Edge successfully won his first ever world title and became the first ever guy to win Money in the Bank and cash it in successfully. And yeah, here we were 20 years later with the first ever cash in. To celebrate, we all know what happened the next night on Raw. The live sex celebration in what became one of the craziest yet controversial segments in WWE history. At the time I was like, wow, that happened on TV. Even though again, I saw that many months later through the power of YouTube, by the way. But yeah, that happened many months later when I saw that. But that when it came to it happening live in the flesh for other people, yeah, it garnered a lot of controversy at the time. And it still remains one of the craziest segments. And although it garnered one of WWE's highest ratings post Attitude Era in over a year on Raw, 5.2 million, there were a lot of backstage happenings, the people involved that they didn't want to do it. And that's just not a dirt sheet talk. That's coming from the people themselves. Lita and Edge, they discussed in like interviews like a decade and a half later that they didn't want to do this. Like, and honestly, I mean, there have been mixed feelings about from the IWC that, okay, they could understand. They didn't understand. I can understand why. I'm on the fence of I can understand why. Because, Lita was already in a place where, she was always getting bashed by fans for her affair with Matt Hardy because, she cheated on Matt, and cheating's never good, especially in a relationship. But, it was getting to a point where, it already happened, like it already happened and all that. I mean, again, not saying cheating is right, but I'm just saying. But when it came to this, Lita specifically said that even Edge and John Cena vouched for Vince to stop this segment, but Vince went ahead with it and even threatened to fire Lita if she didn't comply. Ouch. So Lita also mentioned that this specific segment eventually led to her leaving the WWE late in 2006 and unfortunately was buried on the way out. I honestly kind of saw the burial in a sense because she kind of wasn't treated all like she kind of wasn't booked all that great, especially in her last Survivor Series match with Mickie James. Like she after she lost, she had like a very intense promo, and then she had all her stuff sold by Crime Time. So yeah, she was kind of like on a intense downward spiral. Like she was hiding it like in the early part of 2006, but yeah, as we got down further and further, yeah, it wasn't great. Back to the actual segment itself. Ric Flair interrupted the proceedings before getting his ass beat by Edge, before Cena also interrupted the proceedings too in chasing Edge off, and then gave Lita the F you and a message that he was going to use this rematch clause. And that set into motion the rematch for this show, with Edge looking to prove that he wasn't going to be a transitional champion. And Cena was looking to regain the title going to WWE's most important time of the year, which was WrestleMania. So I mainly remember this match because of John Cena's weird entrance. Like Vince and WWE came up with this oddly extravagant entrance that kind of wasn't necessary. Like it was like they made this spaceship, this spaceship catwalk for Cena, and like Joey Styles was calling it like a spectacular entrance when I was like where did they come up with this idea? It was just like kind of weird. When it was just like a standard, when it's just a standard Rumble pay-per-view match, like you didn't need to go balls to the wall with this with a standard pay-per-view match that's not at WrestleMania. But I digress. The crowd was still pretty into this, into Cena. They were into Edge. They were not exhausted from the Royal Rumble match that was immediately after this. That preceded this. So that was good. But as for the matchup itself, I mean, it was okay. The thing is just there was not really much going for it. It was pretty much like a house show match per se, because Edge controlled a lot of the match until you get into the very late minutes of it, where Cena dodged a spear. He had his big comeback, and then we got the finish, which saw John Cena hit the 5-knuckle shuffle, but Lita distracted the ref as Cena had Edge pinned. So Cena went to go and get his lick on Lita. I don't mean that way, but went to attack Lita until he dodged a spear from Edge that hit Lita, and she went off the apron. So the finish saw Cena hit the FU and make Edge tap out to the STFU and win a surprisingly lengthy match. It went about 15 minutes or so, and he got the WWE title back in time for WrestleMania. So again, it was an okay match, but nothing of note happened in this one. But the good thing was the crowd was still kind of invested into it. They were still mixed. They're still pretty mixed on Cena at this time, but the negative reactions would start to be increasingly apparent after this, and both would go on to have much better matches than this, given that this is pretty early in their years-long worth of rivalry. And, Cena winning back the title wasn't much of a surprise either, given he was set to headline WrestleMania in a few months. I was just kind of surprised that it happened like this early, though. But despite a short first title run for Edge, he would also end up in a pretty good position for WrestleMania too, with the CERN Hardcore Legend. So now we get on to our main event of this Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and that had the World Heavyweight Champion, Kurt Angle, taking on Mark Henry. Some of you may be wondering, like, why is this title match main eventing the pay-per-view? Well, it came with reason. So the story behind this one was, of a World Heavyweight title that was vacated by Batista because he suffered a triceps tear in a steel cage match at a house show against Mark Henry days prior to an episode of SmackDown, like 3 weeks ago, prior to this pay-per-view. So later that night, you had a 20-man battle royale take place to determine a new champion. And one of those participants had Kurt Angle, who was a Raw guy. He eliminated Henry to win the title, and that started a feud as Kurt Angle turned into a good guy. Both Kurt Angle and his manager Daivari, they moved over to Raw, from Raw over to SmackDown due to the title change and what Angle deemed as his contract expiring from Raw. But in the build-up, Daivari turned on Kurt Angle to be Mark Henry's new manager, And the build-up also continues to portray Mark Henry's new new character as the world's strongest man, which included powering out the ankle lock days prior to this pay-per-view. So not a lot really happened in the build-up, given that the title change was pretty much weeks prior to the Rumble. Batista's injury caused plenty of shift in the World Heavyweight title scene. They had to move over Angle from Raw to SmackDown because they basically had nobody as a top champion. They simply couldn't just put Mark Henry in that position quite yet or at all. So yeah, they didn't have anyone ready to go quite yet. So when it came to this match, one thing I want to note first before we get into the actual match is that, man, like, I think this is like one of that during this point in time, like Kurt Angle's entrance was probably the most intense it was. And this was very late in his initial WWE run, because the pyro guy was like just, holding onto that pyro gun, and then he was just letting it go off. The pyro was all over the place. And then Angle was leading the "You suck" chant. Like, normally they're directed at him, but no, he was projecting, like they were saying, "You suck" to his opponent. And Kurt Angle was leading them onto Mark Henry. So for the match itself, this was not great at all, because Mark Henry couldn't do all that much at the time. So the match was booked around Angle having to overcome the power and strength of Mark Henry. He was at a clear disadvantage. So Henry dominated a lot of this match with said power and strength, but Angle managed to rally back when he broke out of a bear hug, and he hit a German suplex. He lifted Henry for a German suplex, and he actually managed to lift him up for an Angle slam for a very close near fall. That kind of woke up the fans, which I kind of noticed that some of them started to leave. There were a couple of empty seats after the Cena Edge match was done with. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And then after that, you had the ankle lock applied on Mark Henry, but Henry powered out of that again, not knowing that he caused a ref bump by powering out of the ankle lock, but Angle bumped into the referee. And then you get to the finish. Angle had to cheat plenty of times in this match. He hit Henry in the dick. He hit Henry with the steel chair, and he tripped Mark Henry into an exposed turnbuckle before using the deadly fruit roll up with a little bit of flavor of grabbing the bottom rope without the referee looking to win the match and keep the World Heavyweight title. So yeah, some people were probably at the time were questioning about that finish, but yeah, you got to work with what you have, man. You got to find a way to work with that, because given the previous limitations of previously mentioned limitations of Mark Henry, and then I guess you can also kind of excuse like Angle. He was a heel weeks prior. It kind of worked, I guess. I mean, again, it was not a great match by any means, but the finish was okay. The finish was, I mean, not okay, but it's like it's something. So then before we move on to the end, we'll say this about Mark Henry and his 2006 push. It was not work. It didn't work for me, in my opinion. Sure, he had his strengths. And he also had that cool theme song that he had in later on in the year. You know, the one that would become more notable for him. I'd say his strengths couldn't translate into solid match quality quite yet, but he got much better in the later years. So around this time, though, not quite yet. Now, for the reason why this match main evented the show, Kurt Angle was celebrating, albeit he didn't get much time to celebrate, because out came a gong, out came the Druids, and we all know what was going to happen from there. The Undertaker. The Undertaker hadn't been seen since Armageddon with that Hell in a Cell match in that win over Randy Orton. He returned after over a month off. He arrived in a badass way, on a chariot with horses, and he was with his droids, and he confronted Kurt Angle in the entranceway, and he signaled his claim as the next challenger for the World Heavyweight title. But what better way to do that was by using some supernatural lightning powers to make the ring, which Angle was still in, by the way, collapse. And yeah, the ring collapsed along with Angle in it as the 2006 Royal Rumble came to a close. Yeah, that was a badass way to challenge for the World Heavyweight title. I remember seeing that a year or two later growing up, and yeah, badass moment. And that badass moment led to Kurt Angle versus Undertaker at No Way Out. And had that been the match at WrestleMania, I mean, I would have no problem instead of what we ended up getting. I honestly wouldn't have had a problem with that, in my opinion. But when it came to that match at No Way Out, a lot of people were saying, a lot of fans were claiming that as one of the greatest matches ever. I mean, maybe I have to take a look at that. So overall, the 2006 Royal Rumble match, again, it's always going to have a special place in my heart because of Rey Mysterio's journey to win that match and the meaning behind it all. I know some fans blast it because, it felt like a sympathy win for Eddie, but damn it, this was one of the best ones because of the story. Even if Vince messed up the follow-up post-Mania, and it's my GOAT. It's my GOAT, Rey Mysterio, winning it all for his best friend. And it made me feel something, damn it. It made me feel something. And if it didn't mean anything to you, that's okay. That's okay. It meant something for a lot of people back then, and it made me feel something now. So let me have this. Vince also did a good job in setting the wheels in motion for the rest of WrestleMania season, like No Way Out, like with Kurt Angle versus Undertaker, and then eventually Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton, and then the other Mania matches that would eventually take place, like his own with Shawn Michaels, and then Trish Stratus versus Mickie James. So yeah, a lot of things were starting to set in motion for this road to WrestleMania 22. But when you look at the show overall, outside of the Royal Rumble match, this show was it was like average because there was just a lot of filler. You had the 3-match filler to kick off the show, and then you had the world title matches that were decent at best, but below average. And you sandwich those with the Royal Rumble match in the middle, like a really good to great Royal Rumble match. Yeah, it doesn't equate to a good show. Like the only things that are worth watching as a casual or a diehard from this Royal Rumble match, if you're gonna watch it in retrospect, is Undertaker's return at the end of the show, and obviously the 2006 Royal Rumble. The match itself, obviously. But yeah, this is great. This is, at least from my point of view, I mean, aside from the rest of the card itself, it was great to look back at the 2006 Royal Rumble the match, and I guess you could say the pay-per-view, because I never saw like most of the pay-per-view in of itself. So I guess I got to experience the rest of the pay-per-view aside from the Royal Rumble match itself. So if you had seen the pay-per-view before, whether it was in the past or recently, let me share the words. Share your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on audio. Send me a message on my socials at Very Cold Lasagna. Let's have a conversation as the upcoming Royal Rumble is coming up. Not sure if I'll do a review on that though, but I want to make sure. I wanted to make sure that I look back at this Royal Rumble that again holds a special place in my heart. But that's gonna do it for this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast. I've been your host, Dylan Lasagna, once again bringing you all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports and wrestling for you sports fans and wrestling fans out there like you and me. This was episode number 330, And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until the next one, when I see you in that one, peace out.